everyone, and welcome to my framework of practice, my final presentation. A lot of you are probably wondering why I decided to do a video presentation versus a formal presentation. The reason being is that I was a distance student for my Bachelor of Social Work, so it's very important for me that I share my framework with my former professors as well as my classmates. And anyone who's helped me through this journey. It gives them a way to look back and see my framework and the journey that I went through. So just the table of contents. First I'll go over acknowledgements, then I'll move into introduction and introducing myself. Then I will move into personal ties, then I will talk about the Association of Black Social Workers, and the ideological perspectives and theoretical perspectives. I'll then move into practice strategies perspective and professional ethics, and then I will talk about my final thoughts. So, acknowledgements. First, I'd like to thank God for giving me the motivation and strength needed to complete my bachelor degree. Second, I'm grateful for my parents who supported me through my whole career and my whole 7 years in university, so I'm very thankful that they stuck by my side. I'm also grateful for my supervisor, Shalina Gordon, whose expertise, understanding, and generous guidance and support made it possible for me to complete my placement. Next, I'm grateful for the Association of Black Social Workers for allowing me to complete my framework in the organization. And I'd also like to thank my professors at Dalhousie University for the commitment and feedback they've provided me throughout the years. And I'm also grateful for my faculty advisor, Trevor Breen, who was very flexible and understanding during my placement. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my fiance for allowing me to continue this, my education while staying home and providing for our 2 children. So my name is Courtney Brown. A little bit about me. I started I started in 2009 at Dalhousie. I remember in high school I went to my counselor and I asked her for all the credentials that were needed that I needed to complete my, so that I could be enrolled into the Bachelor of Social Work, because I told her I wanted to be a social worker. So I took all the courses needed in high school, and then I got accepted in 2009 for the Bachelor of Arts undergraduate program, majored in sociology. So I completed 3 years of my Bachelor of Arts. Then I decided to take a big step and apply early to Bachelor of Social Work, not thinking I would get in because I know that they usually take people who have already completed an undergrad. So I got in 2012. A lot has happened. I had to there was a point in my degree where I had to withdraw because I didn't do so well in a course. And then I appealed it and I was put back into my Bachelor of Social Work. So then I just had to complete from there, and so it's taken me 4 years, so this is my 4th year. That's a little bit about me. So throughout this presentation, I kind of want to focus it more about my identity, because I feel that I didn't have an identity growing up. The reason I say this is I was raised in a all-white community. My mother's white and my father's black, so we never seen that the black side of our family. So I always tried to fit into the white community. I always would. An example I often give people is when we would go to school dances, I would, put on my friend's makeup, her foundation, knowing that it was a different color than my skin, but just trying to fit in. So that was just things like that, trying to fit into that community. But also I'd never fit into the Black community because I was never around them as much to really get an understanding of my culture. So personal ties. So my Black community is Africville. My great-great-great-grandfather is named William Brown, and he was one of the first settlers of Africville. And then my grandfather Clarence Brown and my grandmother Shirley Byers, who's still living today, they lived on Africville and got married on Africville. And then my father was born in 1963. His name's Stephen Brown. He lived there for about 6 years until they tore it down. So Africville's a big part of our family. We go to the Africville reunion every year. And it's just very important to my father and our family that we just continue on and educate the youth with the history of Africville. So, ABSW. So I completed my field placement at the Association of Black Social Workers. The Association of Black Social Workers is a volunteer charitable organization consisting of Black social workers and human service workers throughout Nova Scotia. There's 3 objectives. I'm not sure if you can read them, but I'll read them out for you. 3 objectives that the ABSW focuses on. The first one here in the blue is to provide education and by providing courses, seminars, and workshops about social work related projects and programs geared towards persons of African descent. The second objective is that it focuses on advancing education by providing scholarships, bursaries, awards, and other forms of financial assistance to persons of African descent enrolled in a social work degree program. And the third objective is to do all such other things that are incidental to the attainment of the foregoing objects. So yeah, that's the 3 objectives that ABSW focuses on. And so just a little bit of history. ABSW was originally formed in Montreal in 1977. A group started in 1979 with a membership of 4 members. And then it became reactivated in 1987 and now has an ongoing membership today. ABSW also works in advocating and creating programs for the Black community, and also supporting anybody that comes to our organization. So to talk about my experience at ABSW, it was a great experience. The staff were great. They were very flexible. I actually had to deliver my youngest child during my placement, so they were very accommodating with that and understanding. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of skills. I think the biggest skill that I've learned at ABSW was documentation and administration. Coming into it, I didn't know how much documentation is actually needed, going from case notes and then filling out grant applications. So that part is very important, and making sure that the proper documentation goes in the proper folder is very important, because there's a lot of files. So organization is key at the ABSW. And another skill I learned with ABSW is the Afrocentric approach, which I will talk about in the theoretical perspectives. But right now we're going to move to ideological perspectives. So growing up biracial, I wasn't always aware of racism and discrimination that the African Nova Scotian community faced. I was only aware of what I faced. I never because I wasn't aware of that side of my culture. I didn't, I didn't really connect with them. For my experience, it happened when I was probably started at 7, so it's happened at a young age, and it's continued on. So it's very important that I find my identity, because I find that I'm just trying to fit into each community. So, for example, the example I gave before, putting on the makeup, trying to fit in on my white side, but then going to my black community and then calling me whitewashed because of the way I talk. So just trying to find that balance between both communities is very important, and that's something that I'm still working on. My placement at ABSW taught me how to effectively work with individuals, communities, families, people of African descent. I never had a strong understanding of how to do that, or I never did that before. So learning to use the Afrocentric approach, which was very important for me, because it focuses on similarities rather than differences amongst people of African heritage. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So yeah, just going back to, I see a strong cultural difference between African Canadian and Euro Canadian families, such as individual and collective identity. A personal example of this is back in high school, there was probably 5% of the population was of African descent. So at lunchtime and on our breaks, we would go to the cafeteria and we would sit at the table in the corner by the window. Everybody knew that that's where we would sit. So I think we segregated ourselves away from everybody because that's where we felt a sense of belonging, and we felt that if we stayed together over there, no one would bother us, we wouldn't experience any racism. So I think I learned a lot about how to deal with racism and discrimination just from my experiences as a kid. So as a kid, I would have acted out inappropriately and unacceptable. I would often want to fight back or yell back at them, but now I've learned to I can address the issue with the person one-on-one and say, hey, what's the problem, or I know how to handle the situation now, and really accept that racism does happen and it's uncontrollable, and I'm still going to experience it later on in life. So how to manage that. So now moving on to theoretical perspectives. So there are 3 theories that I used throughout my placement. The first one is Afrocentric theory. Before I go into Afrocentric theory, I just want to talk a little bit about why theory is important to social workers. So there was Professor Brian Littlechild is the Associate Head of Nursing, Midwifery and Social Work at the University of Hertfordshire, UK. And he gave a very good quote that really stuck to me. He said, "Even if I had the basic skills with my clients on my first home visit, good use of nonverbal and verbal communication techniques, etc., I needed to ground these in theoretical perspectives to help me reflect on what I was doing and why I was doing it. Some things might have emerged for which assessment schedules cannot prepare us." So this goes into saying, even if I had all these skills needed to be a social worker and practice as a social worker, and if I don't have theory, then I can't practice. Theory is like a backbone to social work practice. When talking about Afrocentric theory, it's this was an approach I wasn't even aware of before I even started my placement. So that's why I wanted to secure my position here at ABSW to do my field placement, so that I could learn more about it. And I have a diagram here, so just of the differences. So it focuses on the well-being of African persons, cultures, beliefs, values that are viewed collectively rather than individualistically. So here we can see a difference. This is you might not be able to see it, but here is Afrocentric worldview versus the Eurocentric worldview, and I'll read it out. So the first one is emphasis on harmony and collectivity. And so then you see the difference in emphasis on domination, conflict, and fragmentation. So then collective and non-materialistic orientation towards people, individualistic, materialistic orientation towards life. So we can really see that difference there. Emphasis on non-materialist and intangible qualities of people. Emphasis on material and physical attributes of people. So yeah, it's really the complete opposite. And what I like most about Afrocentric theory is that it's universal. So it's not just towards African descent. Anybody can use this theory. And a lot of people don't really seem to understand that. They see Afrocentric and they just assume that that's geared towards persons of African descent. So then we have conflict theory. Conflict theory, so yeah, it was used to examine social development and conflicts of interest in society. So conflict theory works towards like community work and people dealing with oppression and racism. So yeah, that's conflict theory, and I found that the outreach social worker for ABSW deals a lot with oppression and the systems and social justice. So that's where I found that I was using conflict theory a lot. And what I like most about it is the idea of human behavior and its focus on power and structure. So understanding how power disparities impact people's lives due to my lived experience. So, you know, people of power often intimidate oppressed people because they have that authority. And the last one is strength-based theory, and I'd say I probably use this one a lot, most actually, because I used it in everything I did. So, you know, whether it was communicating with the client, I made sure that I focused on the client's strengths rather than their weaknesses. When I was writing case notes, I made sure I was writing from a strengths-based approach as well as an anti-oppressive approach. So I think that's very, strength-based theory is very important to have in your practice. So practice strategies. So one of my goals for my field placement was to improve my skills working with racialized and marginalized groups. And so a way of doing this was to create an event where people of the African Nova Scotian community can go to and see all the organizations. So what we did, a former ABSW social work student, Melanie Cluett, and we created an event for the Africville Festival. And so what that consisted of is we ended up having 13 organizations come out to Africville and display information about their organizations to the African Nova Scotian community as well as the public, just on information about what supports are available and what the organization has to offer. So that went really well. It was the first year and it was very successful. We didn't even think that we would have that many organizations participating with us, so that was good. Some organizations such as Ceasefire, the Fire Department, the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission, ABSW attended, fire department, the Buddy Day Institute, just institutions like that. And we wanted to do this because we know that there aren't, we think that there's, there's not that much information given to African Nova Scotians, and they don't utilize the organizations or aren't aware of what organizations are available to them. So we thought that this would be beneficial to them. Some practice strategies that were challenging for me. Self-care was very challenging for me. I had a lot of problems trying to find time for myself and time for me to reflect at the end of the day, or whether it was on my break. It was hard for me to find self-care because it's so it's so important to really reflect on how the day went and what you could do differently for tomorrow is very important to me. So I'm still trying to balance that into my work schedule. So it's an ongoing challenge, but it will soon be better. So next, going on to professional ethics. So I'm just gonna briefly go through, because we all know the code of ethics. So the first one is having respect for your clients. I think this is a big one. If you don't have respect for it's pretty simple. If you don't have respect for your clients, then they're not going to respect you back, and this isn't really the profession to not have respect. So the second one, for justice. Social workers promote social fairness and distribution of resources, and act to reduce barriers and expand choices for all persons, with special regard for those who are marginalized, oppressed, disadvantaged, vulnerable, or have exceptional needs. So always trying to find justice within a client or within a community is important. Service to humanity. When acting in a professional capacity, social workers place their professional practice before their personal goals or advantage. So I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Integrity of professional practice. So just making sure you are open-minded and refrain from demonstrating any personal values is important. The next one is very important, which is confidentiality. This one is a big one for me personally, because I don't think that a person's name it should be kept confidential. It shouldn't be broadcast or displayed in any manner, because I don't think that's very fair. I know that for me personally, I wouldn't want my identity to be viewed or seen, or someone read through my file. I want to keep it confidential. So making sure that everything is confidential is very important. And the last one, I think that the values that I just explained bring together this one, which is the competence in professional practice, which focuses on lifelong learning. So, final thoughts. My final thoughts, this placement was an amazing experience. I can't even go into all of the good things I liked about it. I mean, the staff was, once again, was amazing, and my faculty advisor was very accommodating. I have to thank everybody, because I could not have done it without my parents, my fiance, of course, Shalina Gordon, who has a very busy schedule but still maintained to help me and guide me through my placement. I also would like to thank Veronica Marsman. She's helped me along my whole social work degree, from using her as a recommendation to get into the social work program, and then to advocating with me to get back into the program when there was a time where I had to withdraw, so helping me get back. and then to allowing me to accepting my proposal to do the field placement here. I really thank you, Veronica. And I'm more than happy to start my life as a social worker. I also wanted to say that I did find some of my identity, and I've come to realize that I would mostly identify as Black, just because that's what's comfortable for me. And so as I continue to start my career, I'm happy to say that I identify as a Black social worker. So thank you to everyone, and please give me feedback on my video and let me know how, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. My contact information would be in the contact page. Thank you.